Yes, yes, yes. It's the Raphael Dawkins with the Combat Radio. And today, George Foreman gives his pronouncements, passes his verdict on the biggest, the hardest punches in boxing history. Okay, so where's the question? It was in the form of a tweet. There we are. Okay, so Alexander Supertramp asks, I'm not even going to try and read that. It's all garbled nonsense. But effectively it's asking, who were the three hardest punches in boxing history? And where do you put yourself in that list? At George Foreman. And George had some interesting things to say. Okay, so let's get into it. George Foreman, one of the greatest heavyweight boxers in history and knows a thing or two about the hardest punches in the sport. Big George was twice the heavyweight champion of the world and also an Olympic gold medalist. One of the heaviest punchers himself in the sport. Okay, so let's listen to George Foreman's assessment of the best punchers in the game. Okay, so George Foreman replied, well, Joe Louis was one of the hardest punchers ever. Liston makes the cut, as well as Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson. George says nothing special about me, but he lied. It's very special. Okay, so there's the tweet from George Foreman, and he has, who do you have as number one? Joe Louis. Joe Louis, he had his number one. There it is. Joe Louis was the hardest puncher ever. Liston makes the cut, as well as Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson. Okay, so there we have Mike Tyson, one of the most destructive punchers of all times, says George Foreman. Lennox Lewis, likewise, I have to agree. One man who will probably feel like he should have been on the list is Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, who is the self-declared hardest puncher in boxing history. Get out of here. Wilder has 41 wins by knockouts in his career with Tyson, Fury, and Bermane Stiverne. The only men he has failed to knock out, although he did knock out Bermane Stiverne the second time around. But what the hell Bermane Stiverne was doing in the ring with him, that was a gimme. That was a gimme fight for Deontay Wilder. But Bermane Stiverne hadn't fought for what, 12 months to 14 months to 18 months? What was it? Better part of 2 years. When he fought Bermane Stiverne the second time and knocked him out in the first round. That was disgusting. Wilder didn't do himself any favors by taking that fight. Well, he did in a sense, but not in the eyes of the boxing fans. That was just a waste of fight. Casuals, nothing wrong with casuals, but I mean super casuals. When I say casuals, I mean people who just watch once in a blue moon. They thought it was incredible, but anybody else knows that that was a gimme. That was a gimme for Wilder. Foreman has previously been asked if Wilder was the greatest knockout artist in the history of the sport. He told TMZ he's good, but he hasn't approached Joe Louis, Joe Frazier, Mike Tyson. No, he hasn't approached that kind of recognition yet. No way. Hope you're wearing your mask when you're going shopping, folks. Okay, so no way. It's the Joe Louis. This guy at the top, the Sonny Liston up there, the Lennox Lewis. I'm looking at the name and the belt. The WBC belt. What's that? The WBO, the IBF. Are those the belts that got around his waist? And of course, Tyson, Mike Tyson. So those are the picks of George Foreman when it comes to the heaviest punchers in the game. And yeah, I have to say, it's a damn good list. It's a damn good list. Joe Louis, Sonny Liston, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, and Big George has got to be up there somewhere too. So there it is, just a quick one. George Foreman ranks Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis, and Joe Louis among his hardest punchers, amongst the hardest punchers in boxing, but no room for the Bronze Bomber. And my take on that, well, listen, it's not just a question of how hard you can hit, it's the delivery system. That's right, the delivery system. It don't matter how powerful the engine is in your car. It could be a V8, V12. Do they do V12s? Whatever. If you don't have the right system, the right support system for that power, then it cannot be deployed efficiently. And we've seen how at the very top level, you have to be able to deploy that power efficiently at the very highest level. Joe Louis did it. Sonny Liston did it. Lennox Lewis did it. Mike Tyson did it to an extent. But did Deontay Wilder do it at the highest level? That's the question. It's the Raphael Dawkins. It's the Combat Radio. It's the like. It's the subscribe. It's the comments. It's the shares. And it is the hitting that bell icon to stay updated with news and notifications. So what is your list? Do you agree with George Foreman's list? You got some modifications? Do you agree with his conclusions? Have your say. It's Raphael Dawkins, and I'm out. Oh, and don't forget about the live show. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. 9 p.m. UK time. And I'm out.